This working? Yeah? Woo! I don't. No. Please stop. No. I am very, very uncomfortable with you chanting anybody's name. I feel like you're about to drink some Kool-Aid. We're all going to take a nap. Not me. I'm the guy who doesn't want the job. But I am excited to be here. Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Are you guys ready to laugh tonight? Awesome, yes, because the best way, this is a firm belief of anyone who watches Louder with Crowder or works on the show, that the best way to drown out protesters, we get a lot of them, I've heard that there might be some out there tonight, is drown them out most effectively with laughter and fun, right? Yeah? Also airborne poison, that's pretty effective. I've heard. You just mail them an envelope with powdered sugar and go, have a good day. They're none the wiser. So this is weird for me because I wanted me to do a keynote, and I'm used to doing stand-up, but I actually just came from Texas, so that's where I was coming in from. Okay, all right. So we're the cheering crowd. We just say, like, Steven, Texas, lampposts. Beautiful, beautiful weather in Texas. So you know what that means right now. The global warming alarmists are out in flock. You know, it's mild and sunny in the middle of August. Proof of global warming. We used to call it, a nice day. This is the problem with the neo-environmentalists out there. Now, I actually dated a girl one time who was an environmentalist. Anyone here a big environmentalist or vegan by any chance? Show of hands. One girl. You're going to hate this show. It's not aimed at you, though. And she would get on my case all the time. We have this all the time right now. She's like, Steven, okay, driving an SUV, okay, is just like killing your child. Because you're destroying the world if they have to live in their future, therefore it's just like you're killing them. I said, okay, by that logic, driving a smart car is like abusing your child. Because as soon as you drive your kid to school in that stupid-looking thing, my kid's going to beat the shit out of him. It's out of my hands. She get on my case all the time. The vegan thing is now the environmental. She's like, Steven, oh my God, Steven, you can't eat veal. It's a baby cow. Well, you want to let it grow up? Give it false hope? That's so much more cruel. Vegans that we've had them on the show, so they're in the comment section all the time. One thing I see all the time, one thing, I'm a vegan because at least I've never seen animals treat each other as cruelly, as horribly as human beings do. Come again, dumbass, what was that? Did I just? Okay, you want proof? Animals are the worst things in existence. And I'm an animal guy. I have a dog, Hopper Crowder, some people might know him. 2,000 votes for my dog for president, we found out. No, that's a terrible thing. That could have changed Michigan. But animals are the worst. Okay, let me give you an example. I will take 3 of the cutest animals to give you an example, because we all know sharks. Let's take the cute ones. Let's take penguins, okay? Everyone loves penguins. Is there a penguin in the audience? What's happening? This guy's laughing like Danny DeVito as the Penguin in Batman Returns. Do you have a twirling umbrella you're going to bring out? Is he having a stroke? Does someone need to keep an eye on him? Is there something I'm missing? What is it? What's this heart? What's the penguin thing? You're waving it off. You just really hate penguins? Just let it go? Is that what people are saying? Let it go? What, is there something, did he do something weird with a penguin? Like, do we need to call in the authorities? Are you the Kevin Spacey of penguins? All right, fine, I won't, maybe I shouldn't talk about the penguins. He's already getting hot and flustered, and he's rubbing his nipples. I'm like, what is happening? That's bizarre. A penguin story. I'm gonna do it anyway. So take penguins. Right, they're the cute animals. Everyone loves penguins. They got their little tuxedos. They march. Do you know what penguins do when they're checking the water for predators? When they're checking for sharks or seals? They just find the nearest, weakest penguin at the tip of that iceberg, and they just shove him off the iceberg. Which is, this is terrible for the penguin if there's a shark in there, but it's even more awkward if there isn't. To come back like, you guys, Carl, what the hell? I stood up at your wedding. You just had the outfit. You weren't anything special. Sea otters. Sea otter. Everyone loves sea otters. This is the thing. People are like, oh, sea otters. They're adorable. They have little mustaches. They mate for life. The male, female sea otters, they hold hands while they sleep. I saw it on BuzzFeed. They hold hands while they... No. Do you know what the male sea otter does when finding a female sea otter mate? He bites her face, claws her neck, and copulates the life out of her. That's their mating ritual. That's the romancing. So the next time you see PETA out there screaming, save the sea otters, remember there are throngs of battered female sea otters going, no! Kill him! It's like sleeping with the enemy. I'm Julia Roberts. You have no idea. Dolphins. We've done more research on dolphins than any other mammal in existence. Do you know what we know? We know that dolphins commit infanticide. They kill for fun. They bully. They gang rape other dolphins. It's like an episode of Lock Up with Flipper. But animal rights activists don't. The worst thing for me is vegan waiters because they sneak it in on you. We're in a restaurant, they ask for the recommendations. You're like, well, I recommend the chickpeas and the quinoa salad, and it dawns on you, you're like, ah! No straight man orders the quinoa salad. I do. I think all vegan waiters should be treated like registered sex offenders. Not like the penguin guy, though I do think anytime Morgan Freeman narrates another March film, you shouldn't be invited. No, I do. I think that vegan waiters should be like registered sex offenders, and that they have to notify every table within a 5-mile radius with their checkered past with food. So they come up like, okay, listen, my name is Skylar. It is my duty to inform you that I do not believe in consuming meat or any animal products of any kind. Also, my father never hugged me enough. Can I tell you about our specials? No. I don't trust you around my food or my children. Leave. You know something worse than vegans is fruitarians. Something that really gets me. Anyone here know what a fruitarian is? One guy, and he's doing the peace symbol. I don't know what's going on there. For those who don't know, fruitarians actually, it's a level further, okay? Fruitarians will not eat any fruit unless it has already fallen from the tree because they believe that that tree has willingly given you its seed to spread, and it's the only way to live truly harmoniously with nature. This is the kind of crazy that has Freud shuffling papers in his grave going, shit, I don't even have a form for this. What do I... And it's why we need to ban Disney films. That's all it takes is just one generation with weeping willows and talking squirrels and painting with colors of the wind. Fast forward 15 years, you have an entire generation of politically correct, overly sensitive, fruitarian, menstruating men. That's how the story ends. They always try and get in your case to the vegans and fruitarians. They're like, well, there are lots of successful fruitarians. Really? Name one. Steve Jobs? My point exactly. Oh, shut up. He can't hear you. Plus, he was an atheist. He doesn't even believe he's anywhere, so who cares? This guy's joking about molesting penguins. And all of a sudden, a Steve Jobs joke is too soon. You're going to hate the bit about tsunamis in Japan, let me tell you. I'm actually just thinking now of how I could make up an offensive bit about tsunamis in Japan. I don't have anything. I'll get back to you later. Steve Jobs. That's one thing, though, too. Okay, to get off the politics. Anyone been to the Apple store lately? I'm not a fan. Go in and say, hey, can you fix my phone? Oh, would you like to talk with one of our geniuses? How about customer service, asshole? Is that still a thing? Yeah. You took an iPad mini weekend course. You're not exactly a member of Mensa, all right? The only high IQ society who break for lunch at the Cinnabon. Genius. That's one guy here. You're one member of Mensa. Thank you. Oh, it's Larry O'Connor. That makes sense. He's a very smart man. He also hates Steve Jobs. Which is, I see a lot of hipsters in the audience here tonight, which I appreciate. How many people here are more newly conservative? Would you say in the last 5 years? Yeah, there you go. I can't see with the shark highlights, just by round of applause so I can tell. Good for you. That's awesome. That's really pretty cool. Gonna have to shed your hipster skin at some point. I do, the hipsters are a problem. When I moved to New York City, my friend who's conservative but a hipster was like, oh, where are you moving to in New York? Is it diverse? Does it have enough diversity? Wherever I would move in New York, bro, it's gotta have enough diversity. I'm like, Skylar, you're from Sheboygan. You were 19 when you first met who you referred to as the Black. You asked him if he knew Gary Coleman. And he did know Gary Coleman. Apparently all black people in Sheboygan know Gary Coleman. Little known fact. And anyone here vote for Obama? New conservatives? New conservatives, anyone here actually just kind of change a little bit? Too young. Well, there you go. Well, that's actually pretty cool. So a lot of Generation Z, they call you, right? Man, I will tell you, I am holding out hope for you guys that you are not an entire generation like mine, millennials, of sniveling, cowardly vaginas. And I do mean that. Honestly, this is not a joke. I was talking about this the other day with some friends, and I do think that Generation Z, first off, you're more conservative than we were. You're smarter than we were. You're more industrious than we were. But here's the big difference. With millennials, we were the generation. How many people here would be millennials versus Generation Z? Okay, so a lot of millennials, and then hands or a round of applause. How many would be Generation Z? It just shows you how ashamed the millennials are compared to Z. Claps for Z. Millennials were like defeated. Like, I don't want to be this. I didn't ask for it. No, we're the generation, millennials, right? Think about this for a second. We couldn't get the red pen. They had to even out our soccer scores. We were protected from everything. And your generation, Generation Z, as terrible as it is with the cyberbullying and Facebook and Twitter, I do hope that because of that, you have been we've been incapable of sheltering you from the world. Because anything that you post online, people just tell you why you suck, you're fat, you're gay, or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden, Paris Hilton or whoever it is, I don't know, Scarlett Johansson with her man voice does some kind of a PSA, and we talk about no longer bullying. You shouldn't bully you guys. Like, okay, Scarlett, we got it. And so I really am hoping that Generation Z not only are becoming more conservative, but especially within the workplace, that I think you guys are going to be able to take criticism better. I think you're going to be able to deal with the world better. And I think that's why you are probably the most conservative generation ever. Actually, you are, statistically speaking. So give yourselves a round of applause for that. That's a big deal. Yeah. Doesn't change the fact that some of you are hipsters, though. That's still a problem. The one problem with the hipster thing is, like, you know, with social media, millennials, you can see this. You can see hipsters, you can see where they were in high school and in college, right? And they were like, okay, they were kind of preppy here, and okay, they were kind of goth here. Only this current hipster trend involves permanent tattoos. What could possibly go wrong there? 40 years from now, they're at the bar, the friends are razzing. I'm like, hey, what's that there on your forum? Vampire Weekend? Shut up! It was a thing back then, okay? Those gauges in your ears never really closed up like you hope. You know I'm sensitive! And there's this idea out there, though, that is truly, it's incorrect, that hipsters, that leftists, liberals, that they hate religion, which isn't true. That actually, it's really not true, and I've done my best with my show to correct it. They don't hate religions. They just hate Christians. Yeah, that's really... No, it's true. Yeah, leftists today, progressives, they love all the religions from the deepest, darkest crap holes of the world, to borrow a phrase, where people have been oppressed and raped and pillaged, and years of gross human violations. Also, some wannabe yogi from Arlington can slap their religious symbol on a bumper sticker. Oh, coexist! But the C wants to kill all the other letters. Really... That Islamic crescent moon is a religious equivalent to Pac-Man. Just rah, rah, Buddhists, Christians, Jews. They put Mrs. Pac-Man in a burqa. Now, you can't tell it from the ghosts. It's not a fun game. It's not a fun game. The worst thing about the hipster thing with me is honestly the gluten. It's the gluten. The gluten, what is up with the gluten intolerance? That's the thing. It's like, I don't know. Is there gluten in it? I don't know. I don't even know what that is, but if I could find it, I would shovel mounds of it in your face, you pompous ass. I would hook you up to a gluten morphine drip if I could. You have to be the richest person in the world to have a gluten allergy. Have you noticed that? It's only rich. Congratulations. You've managed to contract a disease which is entirely genetically exclusive to rich white pussies. Good for you. Good for you. And by the way, there's an actual thing, celiac disease, someone I know who has it, and it's like 0.01% of population Earth. If they have gluten, they actually get really sick. Like, not like they have a bit of a tummy ache, like they are actually vomiting, have to be taken to the ICU. This is the only disease that's become a trend that can catch on. No one's like, you know, I think I have a touch of AIDS. I'm AIDS intolerant. Really? Was it HIV? I don't know. I'll have the fish. Which, I think we need to stop AIDS funding. I do. People are like, whoa, what are you saying? Okay, allow me to explain. You're not going to like it anyway. No, this is one thing where I was watching Rent the other day. And we were talking about this in the show. This isn't even a bit. Larry's laughing because he's the only straight male here who's into theater, so he knows where this is going. Have him do his Ethel Merman for you after the show. It's fantastic. Clang, clang, clang went the trolley. Thank you, Larry. Glad you're here. No, Rent. I'm watching Rent. And for those of you who don't know, it's this play, and then it became a film that won all of these Oscars, where it's basically all of these people who live in the village in New York, and they're doing heroin, and they're having all kinds of orgies, and they get AIDS, and we're supposed to feel sorry for them. And I don't. I mean, when I watch that, what's so funny is like, listen, it's not your fault. It is entirely your fault. It's not, listen, there's a scene in there where someone dies because they were shooting HIV and sharing needles. Like, listen, don't worry, it's not you who has to change. It's society who has to change. No, you have to change. All of you have AIDS. Do you realize how statistically rare that is? Every single one of my friends has AIDS. Just stop having orgies and truck stops and shooting with dirty needles. That's it. AIDS. Society has to change. No, you have to change. That's it. I don't even have anywhere to go with that. I was just mad because I saw it playing on repeat at the hotel. Sitting there watching it, just getting mad. I'm like, I cannot believe this. I remember Oprah said 1 in 5 people would have AIDS by 1995, I think. God. All right, moving on. So no one here voted for Barack Obama. That's what not a single person. Too young. Wow, that's incredible. I remember because, everyone who did vote. Wait, what? One person? I can't see. Oh, one person. Okay. All right, you're kind of like Barack Obama there, this sort of like Abercrombie black. You're like generically, no, you know what I'm talking about? Like where they take a guy who's generically ethnic and they put you in skinny jeans on a poster so they can claim diversity but not intimidate white people. That's you. It's a limited brotherhood, but it's strong, tightly knit. Barack Obama, first black president. Seriously, like really, okay, the skinny tie, skinny fat, high sock wearing golfer who would get dusted on the basketball court by Sarah Palin, that was your first black guy? Was Carl Winslow not available? Couldn't get LeVar Burton on the payroll? We ran Ben Carson, who was head of ROTC. When people always claim, Colin Powell, Condoleezza Rice, not black enough, I'm like, okay, Ben Carson was head of his class, ROTC. He tried to stab somebody, was only stopped by a belt buckle. I was actually going to stab them in the spleen, but the belt buckle was a miracle. Thank you, Ben. It truly was. All right, this is why I have this up here. We have some news of the day. This is just I want to get some news of the day. I just was reading about this from CBC today. Have you heard therapists who treat anxiety, they're now hearing this, Donald Trump, they're talking about Donald Trump anxiety disorder? This is an actual quote. I couldn't bring this up here. I couldn't do the overlays, but I have these here, and I'll make them available on the website afterwards. This is a direct quote from CBC. Trump anxiety disorder has been on the rise in the months following the election, according to mental health professionals from across the country who report unusually high levels of politics-related stress in their practices. Yeah, warning signs include trouble sleeping, heart palpitations, and 4-hour anger erections following summits with Vladimir Putin. Also says, other words that cause mass trauma, freedom, penis, and responsibility. So that causes anxiety. In case you're wondering, the first half true, second half, a little op-eds work going on. This also, remember when people said, listen, who cares? Who cares what bathroom you want to use? Who cares about the gender issue? It's not going to affect you. All right, well, let's see the next story. So this is we were reading about this. An Argentinian man legally changed his gender to retire early. This comes from The Nation. Direct quote, Sergio, who was a divorced 59-year-old man became Sergia under a law that allows a legal change of gender without undergoing sex reassignment surgery. In Argentina, women can retire at age 60, but men have to wait until they are 65. So there you go. See, lest you forget, your female privilege is showing, and in this case, her dick. So, no, a lot of Gestapo, a lot of SS actually, they went to Argentina after World War II. They fled. All this time we should have just been looking for bon vivant Adolpha Hitler. She was prancing and sashaying. Andrew Cuomo again said he'll sue if the Supreme Court rolls back Roe v. Wade. Have you been reading this? There's more tweets today. So for those of you who don't know, wondering what grounds he says he would sue the overturning, of course, of 1973 Roe v. Wade, though I suspect he's still bitter that it came 3 years after his brother, CNN's Chris Cuomo, was born. It was 3 years late. You're mad at me? The DNC would have had one less pool boy. It's a tragedy. How disappointed are the parents? How disappointed are the parents that CNN's Chris Cuomo was the less challenged of the sons? What's that Thanksgiving conversation like? Pass the gravy, you're all assholes. I don't know what else we have here. No, this is one. Killer Mike the rapper just had to apologize again for his NRA interview, so that's good. We should count on responsible firearm ownership and laws by rapper Killer apostrophe Mike. Good. I'm glad that we understand that. And our grammar school, but Mo apostrophe Neek. FDA laws by Salt apostrophe N apostrophe Peppa spelled P-E-P-A. I'm glad that we know where our priorities are, leftists. But I do want to talk about one thing here that a lot of people ask me, what's the biggest issue that you think is kind of plaguing Generation Z, Generation Millennials? And it's really simple. We've talked about the logical fallacy of the left, and we'll get to questions in a little bit. I don't know about you, but I grew up kind of, Thomas Sowell was a big influence for me. I don't know, anyone here? As a matter of fact, he was a big reason for us starting Change My Mind, was a segment that we did, if anyone's familiar with it. Yeah. And then, you know what, actually, too, you can probably kill this mic. I'm going to go to the podium here. Is this working? Is the podium working? No? Is it on? Oh, okay, there we go. And was a big fan of John Stossel. John Stossel as well. I don't know. I always love John. What I love about John Stossel is he talks to everyone like they're 4-year-olds. I remember he was interviewing someone on a Native American reservation, and this person was complaining about how the white man makes me live this way. And John Stossel said, I understand where you're coming from, but you're wearing jeans. That was literally the moment I became a conservative as a 12-year-old. I'm not joking. It was that moment, and in that same special, he was talking about the EPA and the pollutants, I think, in the East River, the Hudson River, and he said, that's why with all this hogwash you're hearing in the media about pollution, I'm still willing to do this. And he jumped into the river in his little wetsuit, and he looked like kind of a hairless mouse. But I used to watch him after Sabrina the Teenage Witch, terrible show, but Teen Angel, if you remember back then, was really good. It was a lead into 2020, and you had Barbara Walters, and you had John Stossel. And this was a big part of how I became conservative. I also had to pay taxes pretty young because I worked, and that changes you. But I do appreciate with Thomas Sowell a lot, simplification. We just had Naomi Wolf on the show recently. I don't know who's been forced to read her stuff in college. I was. And we had her on the show. She's a noted feminist, and we were talking about abortion. And I remember I asked her, where she said, well, I think maybe after 44 days, or she said 46 days, so maybe it would be, she cited some Old Testament law, I don't know, maybe she drank a bucket of salt water, could be retarded, I have no idea. The point is, she said maybe 46 days, and I said, well, let me ask you this. What makes it different to abort a baby, to abort that baby at 46 days versus 45? What changes? And she said, well, Stephen, I think that's reductive. I said, yes. It's okay to do that. I see a lot of people, and I'm so excited to see what's changing with YAF and Young Republicans. People who were here a long time ago, you remember, it was like Tucker Carlson Crossfire era look-alike convention. Everyone had the bow ties, and they were coming up and like, can I intern for you? No, you're really creepy. And now, I see a really cool intersection. I hate to use that word because it's been stolen of people. different people, people who wouldn't necessarily be considered, the sort of Alex Keaton's conservatives. It's really, really exciting to see because a lot of us for a long time thought, man, this could be it. Because let's think about it, the left dominates education, they dominate media, they dominate, of course, the entertainment industry. And when you look at that, and parents only have so much control over what they can watch, right? We all thought with you, Generation Z, when they say, if you don't like it, shut it off. And I still believe that. But we all thought we couldn't shut it off. Remember? Because you had the internet. We didn't have the parental controls back then. Everything was being pumped into you. And what's been cool about this is watching Generation Z. I know I feel like an old guy at 31 now. Watching you guys grow up. Good example is how you're the most pro-gun generation ever. Ever! Which, to give you a contrast, I remember having to watch Bowling for Columbine in college. Right? I was in college, they made us watch Bowling for Columbine, and Marilyn Manson gave his interview, and he seemed really smart, and everyone was talking about, oh my gosh, this is monumental, I can't believe we haven't seen this before. And everyone in my generation became anti-gun. The Assault Weapons Ban Act was passed. Your generation had one of the worst shootings in history. Terrible, absolutely, we all agree. But the left immediately pivoted before the bodies were cold, trotted out David Hogg to try and elicit an emotional reaction, and Generation Z wasn't afraid to just say, bullshit! And my point is this, it's okay to be reductive, if being reductive is the truth. Especially when you go into academia, the left has tried to, and I learned under Andrew Breitbart, that's how Larry and I knew each other. He said, they try and ignore the person behind the curtain. They want you to think it's more complicated than it is. If you say, what happens at day 46 that is different from day 45? And this person, like Naomi Wolf, is one of the most credentialed feminists in the world. And her only answer is, that's reductive? Continue down that trail of speaking. Yes, it is. Why is it wrong? They usually don't give you an answer. And that's because they want these issues to seem complicated. This is the word of right from the left, is nuance. Anna Kasparian of the Young Turks, everything's nuanced. Like, no, it's not nuanced. It's not at all. You had a nose job, that's cut and dry. We know. But the point is, Penguin guy's mad about that. The point is, sometimes we like to be verbose, we like to be flowery, we like to be unnecessarily complicated. Let me give you an example, something that I think is really, really important. And we talk about this a lot. We talk about SJWs, we talk about screeching, fat, Landwell feminists, we talk about affirmative action, we talk about identity politics. It's really simple, okay? Equal opportunity, and you've heard this before, but I want to try and do it as simply as possible. Equal opportunity or equal outcomes. You have to pick one or the other. You can't have both. That's it. And I don't mean when people say, well, what are the impacts? No, it's really simple to say. If you want to provide equal opportunity to people in this country, you cannot try to ensure equal outcomes. If you ensure equal outcomes, people can't have equal opportunity. And we see this happening, for example, I want to make sure I have this right, in the science fields. Studies have actually shown the more freedom of choice that women, of course, have, rightfully so, the less they actually go into some of these fields. And so now what do? They create quotas. They say, we need 50% of our class to be women. Well, let me ask you, what does that do? What does that do for equal opportunity? What if a guy got a higher score? What if a guy is more qualified for that spot? What if it's a guy who wants to go into nursing, but more women go into nursing and they're better? Women tend to be better teachers. Do we need to meet a quota for men to go in there? The point is, if you try to ensure equal outcomes, someone is losing that spot who deserved to be there in the first place, and you've robbed them of equal opportunity. And the reason I talk about this a lot in the show is because people talk around this a lot, and they talk about solutions and, well, what do we need to do for the black community? What do we need to do for the Asian community? What do we need to do for the LGBTQ, AAIP, and a silent number 2 community? You know what? Let's put that one on hold. But I'm pretty sure it's the same solution for every community. And I know, check my privilege because I'm a cis white male, but I'm Canadian, so I get a little bit of leeway. We're not a very respected people. Don't clap, my prime minister. I will say I am ashamed of my prime minister. Trudeau. Not saying I'm ashamed of Canada, not pulling a Michelle or / Michael Obama. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying, stop it, come on, it's just a joke. You really, people are like, he thinks that Michelle Obama's a man. I don't. Joan Rivers did. The point is, when people talk around it a lot, you don't need to do anything for any individual community other than ensure equal opportunity. Here's a good example. We'll run down that line of questioning, right? People go, okay, but what about slavery? Well, what about it? Well, at one point there were slaves in this country. Absolutely. You think that's right?
No. That's as reductive as you can possibly be. Either the conversation ends and they're really uncomfortable and they leave the dinner table along with Chris Cuomo, or they say, well, what are you saying? At that point in time, there was not equal opportunity. Now there is. I would be against any law that would rob people of equal opportunity. But to then rob somebody else of that opportunity through whether it be affirmative action, whether it be quotas, whether it be gender pronoun laws, for example, right now in Canada. You might not think about that, but what's the goal for that? It all comes down to equal opportunity versus equal outcomes. Jordan Peterson, who was on our show, we covered him. We covered him a long time ago, and I remember we had Lacey Green on recently. He said, I don't think that Bill C-16 has anything to do with language laws in there. He even said, Jordan Peterson, if you watch him when he spoke, he said, I would have no problem using the pronoun. If you look at all the facets that form the variables, okay, we get it. But he did say, I would have no problem using the pronouns if a student asked me to. It's the compulsion of language. And what is that doing? That's ensuring equal outcome of feelings, that everybody feels the same, even if they're wrong. If you give a wrong answer on a test, it's wrong. If you give a wrong answer on your biological sex/gender, it's a very new thing to try and separate this grammatically. I'm French-Canadian. I know how it works, right? It comes from the Romance languages. You are wrong, but we want to ensure that everybody has equal feelings about their actions. Almost all of our problems right now, and the ones that stem from the left, identity politics, when you look at to tax policy, everything from gender to race to tax policy, they are trying to ensure equal outcomes, which, by its very definition, precludes equal opportunity. It's that simple. If you use that as a basis of any argument, if you understand that if you go back to that, you can debate a Bernie bro till you're blue in the face about whether socialism is different because you put democratic in front of it, just like democratic slavery doesn't change anything. And guess what? If it comes back to the fact that this person is trying to ensure equal outcomes, they're wrong. And they simply don't believe in the country that you live in, which is a country of freedom, not like my country of Canada, by the way, where we have anti-speech laws. Actually, I have a friend who was just put before a human rights tribunal for telling a joke. You have any idea how many lawsuits I'd be facing this very night? So be reductive with that. It's okay, because I know a lot of people here, particularly young conservatives, say, I don't necessarily know how to argue these points. It's okay to find the fundamental premise and use the Socratic method. And I have found in all of my experience, I found a few things. I've been fortunate enough to interview people who are the most successful people in the world. Thomas Sowell is a good example. Daniel Cormier, we just interviewed 2 weeks ago. We've interviewed, star athletes. We've interviewed star intellectuals. A couple things that make them really, really successful, I've noticed. 2 things. And I might write this in a book and give it out for it. It'll be called The Self-Help Book You Hate. 2 things. Daniel Cormier, who's the current light heavyweight champion and heavyweight champion in the UFC. Brian Shaw, who's the world's strongest man. And Thomas Sowell, all pretty much gave the same answers. When did you realize you were the strongest man in the world? When did you realize you were the baddest man on the planet? When did you realize you were one of the most brilliant economists of our time? All of them just said, I realized at one point that I could do this, so there's a belief in yourself, but a flash of genius, if you've never seen that film, it's an actual legal term, right? When someone invents something, it's called flash of genius. You can actually track it when you had that realization. Real self-belief. Now that's one thing that's been robbed of an entire generation, millennials, not so much Generation Z, because they try to give us false self-esteem. You can't give someone self-esteem. It's not a gift that you can give, it's something that's earned. So real self-esteem, every successful person said, I can do this, had that moment, and then the follow-up is always discipline and consistency. That's it. That's the secret. That's the secret to being successful, is believing you can do it, picking your purpose, and the in-betweens. You think Brian Shaw likes getting up every day and filling a cooler full of food that would make all of us vomit and then going in and lifting 400 pounds over his head till his back creaks so it sounds like a popcorn machine? No. But he does every day because he's the strongest man in the world. Do you have any idea how much Thomas Sowell had to study between attempts at being stabbed by Ben Carson in the belt buckle, I'm sure? You're not smarter than me. I'm a brain surgeon. I love about Ben Carson. He's like Tiny Tim from the Muppet Christmas Carol, but with a sinister edge. There's anger beneath that surface. No, he didn't want to. It's the in-betweens. It's what you do when nobody's watching. And here's something that's really important. Character matters, right? So all of these people have the same character. When you notice people who are excellent, they have the same character. They do the unfun stuff, what I call the in-betweens when nobody is watching. That's what makes them successful. And the 2 things, we'll talk about this probably another day in the show, the 2 worst things that will impede your success, ironically, success. Success itself is one of the most corrosive things I've ever seen to the human soul. We probably know a lot of people in this very movement who became successful and then fell because it got to their head. Success and cowardice. And cowardice is just avoiding discomfort. Leave the hard door open. Be okay with being uncomfortable. And you know what? Don't let success go to your head. Don't allow success to impede your progress to more success. Outside of that, you just have to believe in yourself and find something that's real, not because someone didn't use a red pen, and then be consistent. And that same thing applies when it comes to discussing issues with people. We'll go to a Q&A here in a second. It's okay to be reductive and to be consistent in your line of reasoning. I'm trying to take this back so you see the best people in the world. They've done two things. Realize they can do it. What you need to do if you're going to go out and change people's minds with liberals is understand that you can change their minds, understand whose minds you can change, understand, boom, flash of genius, why your argument is right, and then consistency. Stay on it. It's okay to be reductive. It's okay to return people to a line of questioning because you know what? We've seen hundreds of thousands of people become pro-life. We've seen hundreds of thousands of people leave the Bernie Bros cult. We've seen hundreds of thousands of people change their fundamental worldview on freedom of speech. And what the United States is, it's just by believing it and being consistent. And I am so glad to see you guys here. We're going to go to a Q&A. Really quick. Whoa. Sorry, you almost got mobbed. All right, okay, I don't know how long we have here to do the Q&A, but thank you. Okay, let's go. Do we have an order? We're going to go left and we want to go. Okay, we'll go to you first, sir. Gentleman who looks like a more studly Michael Cera, yes.
Thank you so much for coming.
Why are you booing? I said more studly Michael Cera. What is wrong with these? It's like, hey, you've got nice biceps. Boo! Okay.
My name is Andrew Stoneman. I'm from the University of Alabama in Huntsville.
Okay.
So obviously, you are the king of stirring up the pot. That's undoubtable. But my question is, how do you get the pot stirred up in a crowd or campus of people who don't necessarily disagree with you,
Yeah.
but just don't care?
That's a good point. I think an important point, what your name was, Andrew?
Anders.
Andrew, well, thank you for your question, Andrew. Everyone give him a round of applause for giving that, I think, a very valid question. And that's why I've always done stand-up and comedy because I always get awkward. I know I'm a 31-year-old giving advice, and what the hell do I know? So you could take it or leave it, but you asked the question, so I'll answer it. I think an important skill set in life, particularly as a conservative, we get a lot of flack sometimes for either the change my mind from some people or the Crowder confronts from other people. Now, they're two very different things. Change my mind is a segment where we sit down, put up a booth, and anyone can come up and discuss an issue. And we don't edit it. We just run it for you. Crowder Confronts is where we confront people online who plot to slash our tires or bomb our van. And some people say, well, I don't think you should do the change my mind because you'll never change these people's minds and they're hostile. And some people say we don't think you should confront these people because that creates more polarization. I think they're both really important. I think a skill that's really important on campus and with anything you do in life if you want to influence people is to recognize the minds that you can change and the ones that you can't. And there is a difference. And what's funny is I actually wrote a book proposal. I've talked about this, and it was run to every conservative publisher back when I was at Fox News, and they said, nah, unless you're selling hybrid seeds and bomb shelters right now, we're not really doing conservative books. And it was identifying the two different kinds of liberals. And that's why we do two different approaches. So a good example is there are people who will sit down who will do change my mind. Let me give you kind of something really clear so that it's reductive. When we do change my mind on the pro-life issue, and I use that because it's so polarizing, it's so clear-cut, right? We've had people sit down and argue, and well, I don't know about this trimester, and they don't really know a whole lot about the abortion process. So kind of the trump card is we bring out the fetal chart. Now we're not showing them aborted fetuses, we're not showing them the procedure, we're not doing any of that, we just show them the fetal development chart, okay? And when we show this to them, you can go watch these videos, one of two things usually happens. What usually happens is people who are pro-abortion find out that they're not, or they're certainly not nearly as pro-abortion as far into the developmental stages that they thought they were. Like a lot of them who said, I think 22 weeks sounds fine. They go I don't know, week 2? We're like, well, there's no law to say safe, legal, and rare up to week 2. That's most people. But we've had people sit down, look at the chart all the way to 9 months, and say, anytime is fine. So, what is your job at that point? Right? Let's say, right now, we have a lineup of questions. Is your job to try and sit there and argue with or convince the person who just told you, I am okay with killing that baby up to 9 months because technically it's not outside the womb? Or is your job to go to that person who said, man, I thought I was okay with abortion up to 22 weeks, but now I realize I'm okay with 4. Two different kinds of people. People whose minds you can change, people who've been led astray by, again, media, entertainment industry, academia, Take any public services industry. Take any industry you can possibly name outside of the family in your house. It's probably very left, outside of maybe the financial sector. There are a lot of people who just are liberal by default. You can change their minds. But the people who are proactive in trying to keep those people in the dark, you can't. And so at that point, you're not arguing with them. You're not having a conversation with them to convince them, but you're having a conversation with that person who says abortion up to 9 weeks until basically it's out of the birth canal, to convince everybody else in that room who thinks that that is an absolute crime against humanity. That's what you need to do. And so it's kind of tough. It's a skill set that people have to develop, but getting a sense for people who can change, that's the Socratic method, getting them to rationalize their positions, usually within about 3 or 4 questions, you can figure out if they actually want to have a conversation or if they just want to scream and, dye their hair blue and yell about fat pride. So thank you, Andrew. I appreciate it. I hope that helps. I think we're going back and forth. Yes, sir.
Adam Duarte from Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles, California.
Adam, thank you. Nice to meet you, Adam.
Nice to meet you, too. Quick question. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has been in the news a lot.
Yeah.
I just wanted to, I know you mentioned democratic socialism real quick. I just wanted to ask you, what do you think her biggest fallacy is when she talks about democratic socialism?
You know what's funny? It's not even when she talks about democratic socialism. It's when she's asked about democratic socialism. Very recently we had her where she said, well, she didn't answer the question. I don't know if you saw this. I can't remember the exact clip. We ran it on the show. She said, well, okay, I have a degree in economics, so I understand this stuff. And she kept moving on, but it was like, well, hold on a second, you didn't answer the question. That's it. That's her biggest fallacy. Is the biggest fallacy of the left. It's the appeal to authority fallacy. And that happens all the time. And a lot of times people think it's appeal to authority fallacy is just like scientists, right? Or people say there's 97% consensus on climate change. Regardless of where you line up on climate change, right? You can't just say this number because of these experts, therefore my opinion. You are making an inference. And I think the biggest fallacy we see from the left is the same fallacy we see from this lady. Does she call herself a democratic socialist? I think I thought last time she basically just said socialist and let the cat out of the bag. It might have been just a Freudian slip where she's like, I'm a socialist, I mean democratic socialist. Shit. She does that a lot. Well, I have a degree. Therefore I know. Well, Keynes, therefore I know. That's a big thing, and that's used a lot in college, right? How many people here read Keynes in college when you read economics, okay? Good. How many people here read Marx at all, or Lenin, okay? How many people here read Hayek? How many people here read Smith in college? In college, assigned. All the hands go down, see? And, oh, you read it in college? Assigned? Smith? Good. A lot of people should read Smith and learn about the invisible hand that determines markets. So that's the biggest fallacy from her. When she's asked, she just says, I have a degree, therefore I know. And you see that a lot with, hey, you're white male, so you should shut up. Hands off, you don't have a vagina, so you can't have an opinion, right? You don't have a degree, so you can't discuss economics. You're not a scientist, so you can't have an opinion on the fact that the Great Lakes have record highs and the best crops in years, and maybe that's a good thing. Don't allow that to happen. Say, listen, okay, I'm sure there are people smarter than us in any given topic that we're discussing right now. I know that there are people in this room smarter on any given topic that I've discussed tonight, and I readily admit it. Even Chris Cuomo, and I know a lot of weird stuff about Chris Cuomo. The point is, there's always somebody smarter. But what you have to boil it down to with these people is, it's you and I having a conversation. Do our arguments stand on their own merit, or do they not? And if they don't, then you move on down the trail. Her biggest fallacy, to me, first off, it's always democratic socialism. Doesn't change anything. Democratic, put it in front of anything else, doesn't change it. And the appeal to authority fallacy, which I think is the biggest fallacy of the left. And you see it every single day. You'll get it from every single professor. And just don't let it happen. Just say no. Just say no to appealing to authority. And I think, you know what? Hey, I think Johnny Boy, my guys in the audience, we're not going to be doing that tonight. We had something else for you, but Johnny, is Johnny Boy there? We'll forget about that. We have quite a few questions to get to. So, yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Nancy McCullough. I am an incoming freshman at Drexel University. I'm a huge fan. Thank you so much for coming. I've seen so many of your interviews, and I was just wondering how you always keep your cool. I've never seen you get mad.
Oh, I
or
don't.
anything.
I don't. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're always polite.
No. Ask my wife.
You always seem polite.
Well, I appreciate it, and thank you very much for the question, Nancy. Honestly, I don't. And there are a couple of change my minds that I wish I could have taken back. And that's kind of the nature of it. The whole point that came up with Change My Mind, honestly, like I said, I'd read Soul, and I obviously really appreciated people like John Stossel. And we would have these, I don't know about you, but I'll have great conversations with people, including liberals, don't respect them much, a lot of them, but I have good conversations with them in everyday life, and I realized, man, if we could have these conversations, there's one liberal here, is that one person's doing this, the penguin guy, makes sense. I realized that you never see this because, and including when I was on Fox and cable and CNN and BBC and Sky News, they always said, okay, you've got 4 minutes. And while I do believe it's okay to be reductive and to be simple if your argument is correct, I also think that it's important to let someone walk down the logic trail that they've tried to lay before them. And I think it's more productive with those people whose minds can be changed and people who are watching it to give them enough rope to hang themselves. Or a lot of the time they change their mind when they watch the show. Sometimes, though, I'm not polite. Like that's the Crowder Confronts where the person wanted to firebomb our van. And I was actually pretty polite considering they wanted to kill me. But it's okay to be tough as well. It's okay. There's this idea now that, okay, if we want to change minds, we always have to be passive. I don't believe in that either. I believe in being polite if you have the opportunity. There's something we call, and anyone here do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or boxing or combat sports? Anyone? Yeah, but again, I can't really see by round of applause. It's okay, Nancy. I didn't expect you to, but you could surprise us. You match intensity, right? Anytime you, like I've gone in and I've boxed with people who would just absolutely murder me, right? These are people, it wouldn't even be close. But they feel you out and they match your intensity. I think it actually helps if you match the intensity of the individual. And you see that in our interviews. Typically speaking, if someone comes in hot, you offer them the opportunity to mellow it out a little bit. And if they don't, sometimes you got to match the intensity. And sometimes that's enough where they get back in line. They go, oh, okay, hold on a second. This guy was being really nice before. Now he's being kind of a dick. I prefer nice guy as opposed to dick guy. Let's go back to that. So matching intensity is really important. But don't be afraid to push back if they get aggressive, and don't ever put yourself in a position where you can be hurt. This is something that is actually really, really important. We do this a lot. I'm not only talking physically. I have a rule with people I don't know. You can't get an arm's length of me. I had a guy come up afterward. It turned out this was someone who later ended up being arrested. And the same thing when it comes to people arguing with you or debating with you. Don't put yourself in a position where they can get close and they can hurt you. It's okay to protect yourself, but always give people the opportunity to speak and match their intensity. That would be my answer.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Yes, sir. Yes. The first generic white guy, I think, question. We've had women. It's been diverse. So you know what? Why don't you just move on down the trail? No one wants to hear from you. I'm kidding. What's your name, sir?
Howdy. My name is Reed Olson. I'm from Texas A&M University.
Reed Olson?
Yes.
Okay, Texas A&M University. We got kicked off your campus.
Really?
Yep. No, what happened was we were putting up posters for our show that was actually happening at SMU.
Oh.
So yeah. Well, thank you, SMU. Were you guys, any of you there involved with the show at SMU? We did the counter protest. Oh, okay. Oh, you did the counter protest of our show? Yes, sir. Wow.
Anyways,
you and George Soros. They protested our show. That wasn't even a bad show. Okay, sorry about A&M. Love this campus.
anyways, with the looming demographic change that could be really affecting, the conservatism of like certain border states, how do we craft the message of conservatism that's probably more appealing to less traditionally conservative like demographics?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. I don't really know there's an answer to it. And people, and this is one thing too. Again, people who come up, politicians, if you hear them answer that question, it's always really stupid. It's always really stupid. Like you'll have somebody come up like, well, if we could do like a conservative rap video, I'm pretty sure we'd be right in there with DMX. Like that doesn't happen. Like I don't know. I think that if we went down to El Paso and really marketed to Mexican people, no, listen, that's not true. Again, equal opportunity and what people came to for this country is great for a reason. Canada is a silly place for a reason, and that's what it's true. When I tell people here, there are a lot of things, for example, about America that people don't know. That's what I would present first, okay? Before I get to that, let me give you an example of a story. We did a Change My Mind, Build the Wall, Change My Mind. Everyone disagreed. Everyone said, no, don't build it. But they showed up and they said, I do believe we need stricter immigration, but we need to enforce it, and we need some. One guy actually came up as far as to say, yeah, I do think like not a wall, but maybe if we like had digital barcodes and they came in and we like zapped them like with a gun like at the supermarket. And I was like, are you talking about labeling them 666 for them to come in and out of this country? He was like, yeah. I'm like, you do not, you're high. But he actually proposed a digital wall, right? Because he wanted immigration. So a lot of times, the wording of Donald Trump, for example, is worse than the policy. You find that people actually agree with the underlying policy, or the underlying idea or principle, they just don't like the wording. And that same exact changed my mind that we did. This lady came up who was Mexican-American. She was a legal Mexican-American. And she said, I'm against the wall, the wall, Donald Trump is a racist. And I know people say I'm racist. This is what she sounded like. Go watch the video. And then she goes at one point, I swear, if you watch this, we had to blur everything out. She goes, he's racist and against the wall. But she covers my microphone. And she goes, but I have people who are in my neighborhood. They're illegal. They're selling drugs. They're making the loan, the crime. How do I get rid of them? I swear to you, YouTube, Build the Wall changed my mind. And I know it's kind of funny, but my heart broke because we've been told by Vox, God, that sanctuary, if you don't have sanctuary cities, right, what have we been told? We've been told that then Latino Americans, immigrant Americans, will be afraid to call the police because they'll be afraid of being deported. Well, under Obama, there was no chance of that happening because we didn't enforce any of our laws. But the truth is, when you're in cities where they're not enforcing immigration laws, when you're in cities where there are actually more illegal immigrants, the people who suffer most in their own communities are legal immigrants. So you don't need to change the message, you just need to message to them. That's what's incredible about it. Another good example. A lot of people don't realize this stuff about America. I know it because I'm Canadian. Here's one. Freedom of speech doesn't exist anywhere outside the United States of America. You son of a bitch. It's true. Now, do you think someone black, yellow, red, or white, we're all precious in his sight, do you think that any single person would hear that, and if you weren't given, again, if you were able to explain it, wouldn't say, wow, that's pretty damn cool? But instead, unfortunately, the right sometimes plays identity politics like the left. They say, well, how do we reach black people? Okay, let's talk about this. Freedom of speech, we're the only country. Are you on board? Most black people actually are. They say some pretty crazy shit on BET. That's okay. I want them to be able to. I'm not trying to ban the Def Comedy Jam anytime soon. I just don't watch it because I'm out of touch as a white guy. If you talk about freedom of religion, freedom of the press, people do not understand, this does not exist outside of this country. A good example, taxes. This is one right now. That is actually the tax cuts are wildly popular. Are you aware of this? Do you know how unheard of that is for any economic policy to be as popular as the tax cuts were? And because of that, Bernie Sanders, his political career is dead forever. It's dead forever. You know why? Because black people, Latino people are seeing more money in their paychecks. And Bernie Sanders for years has been screaming about how these tax cuts, they'll only benefit the 1%, you son of a bitch! And I know I often get the question, why is Bernie Sanders like Gilbert Gottfried? I know he talks like this about the 1% with his teeth, but then he goes into Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and democratic socialism, shit! That's how I picture him in my mind, so that's how we do it. But Bernie Sanders talked about the 1%, and then a bunch of black people, brown people, young people, anyone who worked for a living pretty much said, I'm the 1%. I have more money in my paycheck. So it's not about changing the message to each individual group of people. It really isn't. It's just about getting the message to them. We've done a really poor job of that. One thing that really bothers me, sorry, I know you're about to clap, and then I was like, you know what pisses me off? I'm like, oh, I should stop clapping. I should have taken the applause. No, it's like, you should just take the applause and go with it. That's what you're here for. I don't know about you, but how many people here really feel, as young conservatives sometimes, a little pandered to? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right? They think like, hey, if we put a young person on our network, everyone's gonna love him, especially if she's got spunk. And you realize, like, you're like, hold on a second. I'm a stand-up, I came from comedy. Our show is a late-night show, it's a comedy show. So I get that I'm the odd one out here, okay? I actually always thought Jon Stewart was funny. I was a fan, I grew up on David Letterman, I know that he became liberal and I disagreed with him, but I think that the guy is really funny. And here's the truth. They've had really young audiences. Now, a good example, Jon Stewart had a really young audience. Trevor Noah does not. He has no audience, but he actually has not a young audience. It's not about being young, right? When you see someone on TV, you don't go, well, what's their age? I'm willing to listen. I actually think that most young people say, well, what are they talking about? What are their ideas? I'm willing to listen. And so unfortunately, conservatives have done the same thing with the black community and the Latino community that they've done with the young community, where they take someone who young people do not relate to at all, but because a bunch of 90-year-olds named Ethel on Facebook think it's a cool rant, They say, oh, let's just toss this person out there and young people will like them. But you're smarter than that. And I think the most important thing is actually allowing the possibility that anyone you're speaking with is intelligent. I often hear from conservatives, some relatives are like, oh man, this generation, they're so stupid. No, you know what? They're not. They're not stupid. Just like black people aren't stupid, just like Latinos aren't stupid, just like Generation Z is not stupid, millennials aren't stupid. None of them are stupid. But if you say they're stupid, then you absolve yourself of making the argument that could stop them, that could save them from their stupidity. And too many conservatives have done that. So what I want to see is conservatives to stop absolving ourselves of the job of reaching everybody. Thank you for your question, but I know you're probably hoping for an answer like if I'd be like, well, I think blacks would like it if I said I'm a Republican and I'm here to say blah, 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 blah. It's like, it doesn't work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right. Yes, Hitler Youth. Why are you aghast? Have you not read history books?
You're actually not the first person to call me that, or the 10th or the 100th, so it's okay.
I can't imagine I am.
But anyway, my name is
You're the kind of person who gives Ben Shapiro nightmares. You'd be taken down before he even got to the podium. The fact is, if you look at his hairdo and you see his demeanor, he's actually an asshole. So, okay, go ahead. Okay. By the way, people always take this and they think, I love Ben. Ben was my first lawyer. He negotiated my Fox contract because I actually walked up to him. He can tell you the story. He was already here. I said, like, hey, Ben, you're Jewish and you seem really smart and I don't know anything about law. Can you negotiate my contract? He's like, well, the fact is, I'm not necessarily, but yes, I will. And that was it. We were friends for life. Solid guy. Yes.
My name is Austin Jennings, and I go to the University of Virginia. And the problem that I've encountered a lot is even if I'm talking to a liberal that's willing to have their mind changed, we're operating on two different planes of existence where they care about their feelings and I care about their facts.
Yeah.
And how can I help to bridge that gap?
It's a good question. Okay, before I answer, let me ask you, and I know you're going to think this is a cop-out, but you can actually go, and we've talked about this quite a bit on the show, so I do have an answer. But I would like to hear, what do you think the answer is to that? Your question, right, your premise is, let's kind of go through this. This is kind of a change my mind, but for you, right? So your premise, if I'm not mistaken, and this is something that's really important to with Change My Mind. We're going to be writing a book and make it really cheap to hand out, hopefully by fall. So it's important to define your terms. That's one of the first things we talk about. Your premise is, conservatives, like yourself, tend to operate on a wavelength of facts, and your liberal counterparts operate on a wavelength primarily of feelings, correct?
Yes.
How do you bridge that gap when talking to them is your question.
Yes.
Okay. What do you think the answer is?
My opinion would be that it would be to convince them that the feelings that they're operating on just aren't consistent and can't be applicable if they want to have any kind of worldview at all, and take two things and say, yeah, I can hold these two things at the same time and it makes sense.
I don't think you're wrong, but let me ask you this. Okay, again, this is. I want to make sure that people understand I'm not singling you out at all, but I think it's a very important, and it's probably one of the hardest to answer. You said trying to, if I'm not mistaken, you're saying try to make them understand that their feelings are not in line with the facts, aren't consistent with the facts at hand, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Have you ever had a relative die?
Yes.
Okay, or anything really important that was really painful for you? Like I said, I'm not singling this person out. Now, at this point, did you emotionally act out irrationally, maybe?
More so than usual, for sure, yes.
More so than usual. Yeah, I don't know, this is important. And if someone were trying to speak with you and you were really upset about this, do you think you would have been less receptive to logic or rationale at that point because you felt so deeply in that moment?
Absolutely.
Okay, liberals live that way all the time.
That stinks.
I know. That's the thing. The reason I say is that's how we have people who have literally come up and screamed at me at the top of my lungs for saying that Donald Trump is not a fascist. To them, it's, I don't know, we're going to go to one more question. But to them, that's just as bad as whatever you're thinking of a relative dying. Now, the reason I say this is because Brian Regan, a comedian who I really love, has this bit that's really funny about a kid losing a balloon. Right? And he says the kid loses, and he starts freaking out, and the mom says, well, why do you care? We'll get you another balloon. He said, just imagine your wallet or your laptop floating away. Ah! He says that, because of that kid, it's so important. And I hate to say this, but because of academia, because of the media, because of the entertainment industry, people think that their feelings are just as valid. And so trying to just point out that their feelings aren't valid can't be the right approach immediately. It's a part of the approach, but it's not the immediate approach, right? Because like you said, you wouldn't have been consoled at that point. Let me ask you this. When you're really upset, before someone can talk to you, anyone ever had a pet die, a dog die, a relative die? What does someone need to do before they start talking to you and moving you down the path? Probably relating to you, right? Probably at least recognizing your emotional instability or how you're feeling. It doesn't mean it's right? Anyone here married, by chance? A couple of people? One guy with a beard? It's like the only beard that I see in the audience married. Good for you. You are just absolutely coursing with testosterone. I look at him wrong, I'll conceive. So, okay. It's important to start it that way, just recognizing. You'll see this a lot with Change My Mind. I think it was Nancy who asked this, where I go, okay, I understand where you're coming from, and you ask them why they think that way. And often they'll realize it's an emotive response. And then you say, okay, but can you understand why I might feel this way? Now, what you're doing is disguising a fact as a feeling, and you're emotionally relating to them. You're relating to them on an emotional level, even though you don't want to, I know, and it feels kind of gross. You want to go right away to the facts, like, boom, you're wrong, but you're not going to reach that person. If they feel like you connect with them on an emotional level first, and you slide the facts in there, they go, okay. It's kind of like a kid who, missed the ice cream truck. You mean there's gonna be another one? Yes. And then you do the John Stossel. There's going to be another ice cream truck coming down the street tomorrow. And that's how you do it. So I think I see a lot of conservatives thinking that when they watch Change My Mind, it's just like, boom, fact, shut down. It's not. There's a difference between shutting someone down who's screaming loud, obnoxious, someone who you cannot reach, do that. Obliterate them. Scorched earth, okay? But if the person is emotional and doesn't necessarily know where they stand, which is, I would say, a majority of people, relate to them. Just have a conversation where they feel as though they're being emotionally validated or supported as you start to present factual information. So yeah, that's important. I just don't think with a lot of these people it's the first step. You have to understand, you have an entire generation of people, our generation, not Generation Z, we didn't have any tests corrected with a red pen. I've worked with people in the workplace where you've been like, oh, this is great. Let's Courtney, who works on the site, she'll tell you stories of we've had interns where she's been like, hey, this is great. There's a typo here, and they've wept. They've cried because she's like, can you fix this typo on the website? And that's sometimes those are the people you're dealing with. Relate to them on an emotional level. Make them feel as though their emotions are validated. And by the way, you can validate their emotions without agreeing with the emotions. That's what I was saying when you're married. You need to recognize your wife's emotions, and women, to your husband as well. Recognize, validate what they're saying, so you at least understand that they have a feeling and it feels heard. And then you can lock them out and make them sleep on the couch as my wife does, right? So that's how you take that. But that's how I would answer that question. And I know it's a tough one to do. I appreciate you taking the time.
Can you sign my hat later?
Will I sign your hat?
Yeah.
Depends what's on that hat, Mr. Hitler Youth. Red with Make America Great, fine. Other red hat, depends.
It's got 3 magic letters that are NRA.
Oh, all right, that's fine. I'll do that. Yeah, there you go. I'll sign it David Hogg. I think we had one more question that I saw, and then I was ready for one more question. Then there was a lady in a white dress. She left. Okay, apparently she didn't. Okay, you can. I don't know what's happening. What's happening? What's happening? I gotta go. Okay, you're the penguin, he said? All right. All right. First off, let me be clear.
Yes.
If you're someone with anger issues, I thought he was the penguin guy.
Nah.
So let's be clear about this. I was razzing him. I hadn't seen you yet.
No, I thought that was funny, actually, that
He
you were
deserved
razzing
it.
him. I like that.
So what's the penguin reference?
I don't know. I really don't. I have no idea.
What is this? You guys, you're not very good hosts if you all have an inside joke that everyone in the room knows except the speaker. It's like Bernie Sanders. He's standing on the DNC primary stage, and every single candidate got an F rating from the NRA, but me! Okay.
Anyway,
I'm not going to get an answer on this? Okay, all right, let's just move on.
Ask them. I have no idea.
He's 3 sheets to the wind. He's not going to help me.
Yeah.
All right, yes, that's the final question.
What inspired you to get into comedy? I love it.
What did you boo? Someone went there and went, oh.
Boo
no.
yourself.
Yeah, there you go. That's why he's the Penguin, because he likes to cause chaos. Boo yourself, you son of a bitch! Believe it or not, I really appreciate that question.
Well, thank you.
You know why? Because I was discouraged from it for a long time, particularly from conservatives. And Phyllis Diller has a great quote. And I'm sorry, what was your name? I got so confused up with the Penguin. What was your name, sir?
Jeremy. I'm from Benedictine University outside of Chicago.
Jeremy. Are you thinking about getting into comedy?
I actually want to be a teacher. But I can do comedy on the side. Who knows?
That's the best job for you. It's like an open mic every day. The audience has to be there.
You know, that's what my mom says, actually. So
Yes. You can probably make your mom sit in and give you notes on your jokes.
she says I can stand in front of a room and talk, and it's the perfect job for me.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Mom.
Thank you, Mom. And I actually think teaching is an important job. I don't think it's necessarily the most important job, which I've caught flack for, which I think you probably agree with. We've had recently, I was like, hey, teaching's an important job, but what about neurosurgeon? People were like, screw you! They were doing finger paintings with their head to look like a turkey, you son of a bitch. So, no, teaching is obviously a very important job, and there's a very big divide right now in the teaching community. Teaching unions who are very, very powerful, who don't necessarily look out for the best interest of the students, or the good teachers. That's something I think is really important. Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's a good example where, if we're discussing this issue about teachers, right? Now she's back, the girl with the dress. Oh, okay, she left. All right, so we'll do 2 more questions and I have to go. That's a good example where when people talk about teachers, you change it. You go, hold on a second, I do not care about teachers, but what about the good teachers? I want you to think about this. I did a video on this. Think in your head of how many teachers have influenced your life in a positive way. I can name you 4. You want me to name them? It was Mr. Mitchell, my senior year of English, okay? And I'm saying this so I hope you become one of these, Jeremy.
Well, thank you.
Because it means a lot. But you know what? You have to go through a mountain of shitty teachers to get to a good one, and no one wants to say it because like, oh, they're all great. No, they're not. Mr. Mitchell, because it was really clear we had our English class final year, right? We'd have to read Lord of the Flies. We had a couple of books we had to read, and it was really clear. He said, listen, you come into my class, you read the book, you're going to have a written test on the book afterward, okay? Then you're going to have a written essay completely unrelated to the book. You are going to have to present a persuasive essay. Then we're going to have a written test just on English, grammatical questions. Outside of that, you have to write in your journal every single day. If you write every single day, you get 10% of your grade, so you're already starting with 10%. Now guess what? Everyone did well in this class because everyone read the book, everyone was engaged, they understood the book, reading comprehension was high, and you know what happened in Canada? They came down on Mr. Mitchell and told him that his grades were too high. So the next semester he had to lower them by 4 or 5 points on average, even though nothing else had changed. That to me was a real wake-up call where I said, hold on a second, to me, your goal should be as a teacher, I'm not saying this happens, but it should be that every student gets 100% on the tests at the end of the year. Every student should be an A student at the end of the year. You shouldn't be trying to trick them out of college. And unfortunately, our educational system isn't set up that way. It certainly wasn't set up that way in Canada. So Mr. Mitchell, there was a lady named Mrs. Roberts who stayed after class with me in 7th grade to help me with math. And I remember it because I asked other teachers to help, and they never did, and so I had to go and get a tutor. I can really honestly only think of 3. So the other one is Mrs. Naidu. And I talked about, she was a mean lady. She was a mean West Indian lady. But she really helped me. What happened was I was raised in French Canada. So you want to talk about pervasive laws. Anyone here know the language police in Quebec? So Hitler Youth, I don't know why, that's awkward. It's like, yes, I do know the language police. I'm very fond of them. I think they do great work. Sign my hat, sign it! I don't know why you guys are cheering at that, but okay. Penguin and sign it! So, because I was born in Detroit, no, don't cheer Detroit, okay? Detroit's like Lindsay Lohan. You see them in the news, you kind of really hope it gets its act together, but you know it's never going to. So I was born in Detroit, but then raised in Montreal. My mom's French-Canadian. Because I had a French-Canadian mom, I had to go to what they call immersion. So I had to learn all of my things in French. So I think they thought I was retarded. I'm not entirely sure. I think that's not the term you're supposed to use, but I've actually worked with special needs people for years, and they actually use the word retarded. It's actually really funny because I have to tell them, like, hey, you can't use that word. They're like, no, you can't use that word. Only we can use that word. I'm like, okay, good. I'll go with handicap, whatever it is, and you can say retarded. So they thought I was retarded. And I remember this clear as day. It was my fourth grade class, where there was a paper due. And the teacher, everyone was handing it in. And I was so behind, I just was shuffling through papers, faking like I knew there was a paper due, and I had no idea. And they sent me down, they made me do the test, I think with a maze, where you go through, like, to see if you're retarded. And they were like, no, he's not retarded. Turns out he's English. And they were like, what? They're like, yeah, it turns out, he's having to do his math and geography and history all in French. He's actually a pretty smart kid. He's just, English. And so that year, they switched me over for some kind of legal loophole. If you have one parent who's from Quebec, you have to go to French school because it's pure laine, pure wool. That's why it's racist as hell. They try to get rid of anyone who's not pure French, European, Quebecois blood there, and so they have these language laws, and this was a part of it. And they moved me over to this English class, in the school. And Mrs. Naidu was the teacher there, and she could see I had not learned long division. It was math and French I didn't know. And she stayed with me after class for 4 sessions is all it took, and then I knew long division, which taught me 2 things. It taught me that all my other teachers before her really sucked because they weren't willing to do it, and it taught me that that entire half a year, not semester, this was going through the Christmas break, I never learned long division, and it took one teacher with 4-hour sessions for me to get it and ace the test. And that should not be. That tells you, again, when we talk about our educational system and people get emotional, why don't you care about the kids? I do care about the kids. I care about the kids that you're screwing. They thought I was retarded because I couldn't do long division. It took 4 hours, and it changed my life because of Mrs. Naidu, who was mean but really helpful. And I can think of these people in my mind. This is the flash of genius that I'm talking about. Teachers obviously really matter, but you can count on your hand who impacted your life in a positive way. And I can tell you this, with comedy, to go back to your question, no one wanted me to do it. All the other teachers, aside from Ms. Naidu, they failed me regularly. I was good at nothing else. I was okay. I joke, I was relatively intelligent. I was smarter than average, smart enough, but I really didn't apply myself. And it was all I ever did was act and want to do comedy. And I remember really thinking when I came out of the closet as conservative, which was an accident, because I didn't really know I was conservative. Like I said, I learned it from John Stossel. And I did some bit that got me in trouble, that a bunch of French Canadians in Montreal got mad at me, and I realized, I had kind of jumped into the pool and no one else jumped in the pool with me, and it was cold. And it was really tough. And then when I was on Fox News for a while, and then I realized that conservatism really didn't have a place for comedy. A lot of the times they said they wanted it, but they didn't want it. We stepped out and we did this show that we do now. And that's why we're so touched and so incredible. When I come out and I hear cheers, here's the thing. It has nothing to do with me, honestly. It touches me so much because you need to know that me, and actually back then it was a guy named Dan, and then we had Courtney, and Brodigan was my first hire ever. We were going, there's no conservative Letterman out there. This is what we grew up on. And we're like, I don't know if there's a market for this. Because everything is AM radio where people bitch about Obama, and everything is, cable news where everyone says the same thing. And it must mean that that's how it works in conservatism. But everyone I talk with my age is kind of on board, kind of like people in this room. And so we stepped out and we did a show where there was no ceiling. There was no blueprint at all, and people have embraced it. So hearing how much people have enjoyed it means a lot, not really for me, but it means for the next guy, that when there's another young Steven Crowder who tries to present this idea for a comedy show, there'll be people there to say yes, because I never had that, and it took 10 years, 15 years to get there. So it was to put it in Jerry Maguire's words, it is a pride-swallowing siege, which I will never fully tell you about. That's what comedy is to me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Final question here.
Hi, Steven. I'm
Hi.
Catherine, and I go to Catholic University.
Okay. Sorry, your name?
Catherine.
Oh, Catherine. Okay,
Yes.
I heard Catholic. I go to Catholic. Oh, so
Yeah.
Catherine Catholic. Got it. Sorry.
So my mom's watching at home, and I think she'll appreciate this. But once you've established that people are willing to have their minds changed, what do you think the most effective tactic is to convince people that abortion is wrong?
Okay, good question. Thank you very much, Catherine. I appreciate it. Give her a round of applause. We have to get going. So, has anyone here seen any of our Change My Mind pro-life approaches? Yeah. Oh, wow, thank you. That's great. That means a lot. And, again, the reason that means a lot is because, think about this. Remember when the internet started and it was like, well, there goes entertainment. It's just going to be nothing but cat gifs and turtles humping work boots for 4 seconds, and no one's going to pay attention to any long-form content. Well, now it's come full circle. It's totally changed, right? There could not have been a change my mind 8 years ago. I remember when I was at Fox News, I would try and talk to them about these things. They're like, no, if you're going to be online, it's got to be 3 minutes or less. And I'm going, hold on a second. I kind of know people my age. I kind of know that people are okay if you give them something authentic. And it turns out that a lot of people really enjoy it. It's antithetical to what media was supposed to be. And that's what's really cool. That's the one message I would take home today, that if things are a certain way, it doesn't mean they'll be that way tomorrow. And that's a fundamental difference that I hope you apply to your life the same way conservatives do to economics, right? Bernie Sanders, I just forgot the name of the new socialist we were just talking about.
Cortez.
That's right, Cortez. Right? They just see it as a fixed game, a pie. And they write, there's the 1%, and I want a bigger slice. But if you get 50% of a pie, that's $10. Are you better off than getting 2% of a pie that's $10 million? What if people bake more pies? And that's the same thing that you need to apply to everyday life, right? Right now, maybe there isn't the kind of content out there that you want to see. Right now, maybe there aren't the kind of speakers out there that you want to see. Maybe there aren't the kind of people you want to bring into your own YAF group. But you can make more pies. And that's what changed my mind, was at that point it didn't exist, and we just said, let's try this because we think it'll work with some people. Now, with the pro-life issue, we were really worried about it. Because how often have you been told, like, just avoid religion and politics, and then when they talk about politics, just avoid the abortion issue. That's a losing issue. If conservatives want to win, avoid abortion, right? Wrong. Let me tell you the 4 winning issues. There are 4 overwhelmingly winning issues, and then there's just some subsets. But let me rattle through these really quickly. Freedom of speech right now is a winning issue. That's why you're seeing not only our show, not only Ben Shapiro, but people like Jordan Peterson from Canada, of all places. That guy could be extradited any day and put in a padded room in a straitjacket, and he's standing out there saying that stuff. I don't think people have any idea how dangerous it is, but it's because there's that much of a groundswell. So there's freedom of speech, guns, huge winning issue, Second Amendment with your generation. And a big one, you know what, I won't even get into the 4th one now, but another one is anti-third wave feminism. This is a huge thing right now. I know the people who started clapping were women because most men wanted to clap. They're like, but I don't know if I can clap as a white guy. And that's because fewer women identify as a feminist than ever before. And it's not because you don't want equal rights. It's because you don't like blue-haired fat land whales yelling at you and telling you what to do. And so those are the top 3 winning issues, I would say. There are more, but the feminism thing is deconstructed so easily with abortion. That's one thing that people miss. I get it. You don't want to go right away to gay marriage, right? The good thing is now, gay marriage is in the rearview mirror, and now we're dealing with, chicks with wangs in the ladies' room at Target where people are going, okay, hold on a second. We have men beating up women in mixed martial arts? I think we've gone down the slope. Look above you. That's the slippery slope. They've reached so far that all of a sudden the arguments we weren't supposed to have are winning. The easiest way to deconstruct feminism, third wave feminism, is abortion, because there is no logical consistency to their position whatsoever. What do? We've talked about this. One of the biggest arguments that they use is appeal to authority fallacy. In this case, it's gender. Well, if you don't have a vagina, you can't have a choice. Okay, so do we do away with Roe v. Wade? Because that was mostly white guys. Guess who gave you the pill? Kind of a brilliant ploy on our part, right? That was a little bit of reverse psychology. Don't be sexually predated. Don't have sex with all of the guys. Here's the birth control pill. Don't be chaste. Be chaste. Do not have sex with me. Here's the birth control pill. It was great. Women are like, I want to have sex with everyone and everything, and that will show them. We're like, stop, please. Right? This is feminism all the time. Well, they do the same thing with racial identity, but we're going through feminism right now. They don't believe it because they are totally okay with the appeal to authority as long as it's on their side, right? Roe v. Wade, well, I don't know better than the judge. I don't know better than the justices. What about the opposing justices? You're a white male. You can have an opinion on abortion. Okay. White men make up most of the judges in this country. They also sentence rapists. Should they not be allowed to sentence rapists? What do? White men can't have opinions? This is the crux of feminism, and this is why it's losing. And this is why abortion is so important, because they do all of the things wrong that they can do specifically with abortion. Don't have a penis, don't have an opinion. That's easy to get rid of. Then, well, my body, my choice. Hold on a second, is it your body? And you lead them down the trail. And it is so easy. We've done a video on this. There are just a few lines of questioning with abortion that make it pretty easy. First off, you determine whose body it is. Really quick, easy one. I think we did this with Naomi Wolf, a few really noted feminists. It was my body. I said, okay, at what point? At any point. Okay, do you have 20 fingers, 20 toes? If it's a boy, do you have a penis? Do you have 2 brains? It doesn't apply anywhere else. Why does it apply here? Is it your body? It's clearly not their body. Then they try to get into this murky territory of where life begins. I've never had anyone answer it. Then they try to say, if we don't know, well, if we don't know, then we have to err on the side of abortion. Okay, if you don't know if it's murder, why would you possibly roll the dice on murder? If you're going home tonight and this is something, an analogy I use quite a bit, and they usually never answer it, they just move on to feelings, right? If you're driving home tonight and there's a dog walking out in the road, right? Who here, aside from the sadists, who here would stop? Okay? Now, same situation. You're driving home tonight and you're not entirely sure, but you're pretty sure there's a dog in the road and you're not going to impede traffic if you stop. Who here stops? The only place that people who are horrible human beings, if they apply it, would even apply this logic is to abortion because they don't even believe it. It is not consistent. It is one of the easiest arguments to rebut logically. What defines life? When does it begin? How do you determine it? Whose body is it? And it's really, really easy to cut through all their logical fallacies because with abortion, it's like throwing up a smoke bomb, just like, vagina, 9 weeks, Colorado, Roe v. Wade, I'm gone. And they try and run off. And it doesn't work, and by proxy, when you deconstruct that, you really deconstruct the modern feminist movement, and that becomes a winning argument. We have a lot of atheists, they're not born-again Christians chanting through the aisles who are pro-life, but they go, oh my God, I didn't know this about human development. I had no clue, and now I actually had to second-guess myself on this issue, and then I realized that everything I learned from feminism was wrong. God, the wage gap, it seems like Obama didn't even have access to Google, because that's as easy as pie. Right, 77 cents. Do you believe that these people don't have access to Google, or you just believe they're lying to you? At some point, when you're looking at things so blatant as the wage gap, or abortions at 6 weeks, or I think Texas was 22 weeks, and Colorado it's 26 weeks, these people know that it's a life. People who are arguing know that it's a life. That's why it went from safe, legal, and rare to abortion, on-demand, taxpayer-funded, period. And I think it's really important to know where you stand on it, how to argue, and where does life begin, what determines when it's a life. And here's something else that's really good about the abortion argument that a lot of people don't know. Well, not people don't know, but you don't think about. It's an argument that will only get stronger for your children and the children after them. Because when they use the viability argument, how often do you, what's the most common argument you hear with abortion, right? Viability. Often, wouldn't you say? Probably, one of them, along with stop! So, viability. Well, guess what? Babies are more viable now than ever before. You can even use it in today's world as an example. Okay, does that mean that a baby today that's viable in Lenox Hill Hospital in Manhattan is somehow more of a life than a baby out in the middle of Oklahoma where there isn't a good hospital? Is one a life and one isn't? Because if you don't say yes to that question, then you have to say, well, hold on a second, you done screwed up with millions of lives before the technology we have today and the science that we know today. And not only is the technology getting better as far as viability, but what we know about human development is actually progressing at a rate that is closing in on the left. It is so alarmingly fast, they have to keep changing their arguments, and they're left with nothing but identity politics. So, freedom of speech, guns, third wave feminism, those are huge winning issues, and the biggest way to get to the heart of third wave feminism is abortion. Just read up on it. I'm not even the best guy to do it, but it's pretty simple, it's pretty effective, and I highly recommend you don't avoid it. People who say avoid abortion to win elections, no. You just need someone to go up there and present the right arguments, and you will see an entire country wide-eyed change their opinions because they've never heard this shit before. Thank you so much for your question. I really appreciate it. And final message, we're going to run a video before I go. I just want to say one thing, like I talked about before. It really does, I hate to use the word, isn't it bad that everything we say now we're so sensitive about it? I was going to say touch me, but then my mind went to Kevin Spacey and the Penguin guy. I'm like, I don't want to end on that note, but it really does. It really does move me to see people like this not only supporting what I do, but supporting each other, and a very, very, like I said, a very, very diverse intersect. I hate to use that word, but it's because the left says that a lot of people who I see, a lot of faces here don't exist. And one thing I do get, I get a lot of emails from people. I get a lot of emails from former military. And if we look at people who are Mug Club members, these are people who are actively paying for content. They're the most engaged fans that we can possibly reach. We have a higher minority percentage, a higher percentage of women than I think any other conservative program in the country. And the emails we get all the time are from a lot of people just like you. So if we get rid of that, right, and I say that to set it up because the point is all of them are the same when they email us and they contact us. And the emails that I get that really just send a chill down my spine are from people who say, you know, listen, I didn't want to talk about my political beliefs, but I tweeted one thing one time and my professor knew about it and pulled me aside, and now I'm in trouble. I think I'm going to fail my class. What do I do? Black guy sends that email. Someone sends an email going, hey, listen, what do I do at this point? I'm actually working right now as an intern at a program, and they just talk about Donald Trump as always a fascist. No one can even speak up because it's assumed that this is true and I have a different opinion, and I'm really afraid of losing my job. What do you think I should do? And it's a woman. Or we get an email from someone who says, listen, you know, I'm terrified to even talk about this at the dinner table because my family all think they think Trump's a fascist. They think he wants to kill all Mexicans. I don't even know where they got it, but they think he literally wants to kill Mexicans. And I'm at the table and I don't know how to speak out against it. I don't know, should I be quiet? Should I speak? Of course, it's a Latino American. These people from all different walks of life, but one thing that I see that's consistent is fear. And I know a lot of us out there are afraid. Doesn't matter what color you are, what gender you are, and I know there are 50 today, according to Facebook, or 54. It's ever expanding like the universe. Doesn't matter where you come from. Everyone can be afraid. And when we talk about this all the time, you hear from the left, you hear others, right? Well, they've othered me. I'm an other. And that's where they talk about LGBTQ, AAIP. That's where they talk about black. They talk about women. They talk about pansexual. They talk about gay. They talk about transgender. Take your pick. They talk about being othered. But I get emails every single day, and I'm looking at a room full of faces of people who are others. You people are below the age, generally speaking, of 25 or 30 years old, and despite what every single outlet and platform in which you actively engage tells you, take your schools, they tell you one thing. Take the entertainment industry, they tell you one thing. Take the media, they tell you one thing. Not only do they tell you one opinion, not only do they only showcase one opinion, not only do you have to sit through it, but you're told what you are. And I see that all the time. People are afraid of standing up to talk about what they believe in from the right because they're afraid of being labeled what? Racist, sexist, homophobic, Nazi. And so a lot of people, they laugh when I say, hey, they came out of the closet as a conservative. We just had the Hodge twins on my show yesterday. If anyone knows who they are, they're not black conservatives who go out with talking points. They were a multi-million successful body channel of black guys who were called coons and Uncle Toms just because they actually came out and said that they thought Donald Trump might be a better president than Hillary Clinton. The point that I'm making is we like to think of others as minority groups or as a specific gender. It's not. It's anyone who is in a minority when it comes to an opinion or to voicing that opinion. And a lot of people out there, the consistent message that I get from people like you when they're not in YAF, and that's why these organizations are so important, is that you're afraid. And you know what? Here's the thing. It's okay. It's okay to be afraid. I think everyone here is, and rightfully so, because you could lose your jobs, you could get lower grades in school, but guess what? Here's something else that's changed. People say, have you changed your mind on anything? I have. I was asked this question, I think, at University of a year ago, or maybe it was Virginia Tech, where someone said, do I come out of the closet and talk about my beliefs? And I said, listen, if you want to work in this industry, don't. Keep it to yourself and then make enough money that you can help the next guy. But here's the thing. You don't have a choice anymore because you can't hide from it. They've already found out. Everyone in this room, the people in your life, the executioners who are going to decide whether you live or die, who are going to decide that grade, who are going to decide that internship, guess what? They already know exactly where you line up before they tell them in today's realm of technology. So I get that you're afraid. It's okay. That's why we do what we do. We'll continue to do what we do so that you know you're not only the others out there, you are the most important other out there. And it's okay to be afraid and act on it anyway. Don't act out of fear. Act in the face of your fear because I hear you and we'll keep doing it.